No intro today, guys. You see the Georgia fans. You see the Georgia fans, correct? Yeah. I'll just do it anyways. What's good, everyone? It's your boy Natu with another video for the channel. Welcome back to DMV Sports Zone. I got Rico from Street Scores, a friend of the channel who's been on before, and I have Frank, my former work supervisor. I would say probably best supervisor I've ever had. And they're here to chop it up about the Georgia versus Alabama matchup that happened earlier this week. And we'll get into some more watch the football team talk as well in the second half of the stream. But yeah, Rico, Frank, do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Street Scores, Rico over here, proud Georgia football champion. Since we won, everything tastes better, everything looks better, everything smells better, and it's been beautiful, man.
No question about it. And as I said earlier, Rico, my fellow national champion, how are you this evening? Everything is great. Every time I wake up, now I understand why you Bama fans enjoy this so much. I just greet and will continue to greet all Georgia fans as national champions, and would appreciate if we're giving that reverence from our friends in Alabama. It'll only be a year. I'm guessing y'all will be back soon. So good to have you on, man. And thanks for having me.
No problem. There you go, Frank. I liked what you said at the end. That shows that you know what's up with this rivalry and what's gonna happen next year. But that I'm just gonna put my feelings aside on that.
I like the fact that it's a rivalry though. Like now it is a rivalry. It wasn't a rivalry at first. We could try to say it was with optimism in our voice, but now it actually is for real.
It was like y'all played with us for years. It's just every time you knew you were gonna break our hearts, no matter how.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I mean, I think arguably the biggest reason why it was a rivalry, at least in this game, in this championship game, Stetson Bennett. What are you guys' thoughts on the walk-on that came in and led the Georgia Bulldogs to victory, first national championship in 40 years? What are you guys' thoughts on his performance in the game? And we'll start
Frank,
with
Rico.
Yeah. That's me.
Well, give it to Frank first.
All right. Well, that's 41 years. So don't discount us that extra year of pain. But I'm going to be entirely honest. I was one of those fans that really did not believe that Stetson Bennett could lead us to a national championship. And I think there's right. And I think there's a lot of us who have to put our hands in the air and admit that we were wrong. And I look at someone like JT Daniel, who I think has an NFL future. Hopefully Stetson gets his shot. But what they did offensively, understanding what his skill set was and applying it and staying confident throughout, you can't put a price tag on the leadership. And I think that's something that we all made the mistake on. And so I have never been happier to be wrong in my life. I don't know, Rico, if you're in the same boat, but I'm betting a lot of us are.
No, I'm right with you. What's even funnier, you said that we didn't believe in him all season. I'm pretty sure most of us didn't believe in him up till halftime, honestly. Like, I was like, when are we going to throw JT Daniels in? The defense is playing better than we expected. And it was like, bro, we just need points on the board. And, he went on to have, he went 4 for 4 at the end of the game, 2 touchdowns with them. I mean, he stepped up when it mattered most. And he's a legend. Like, he could get whatever he wants free, a free house, free meal, anywhere he goes, step into any house in Georgia, Atlanta, Athens, whatever, get whatever he wants. I think, honestly, he deserves to be on the payroll for Georgia moving forward. Like, it should just say national championship. That should be his job description. He should get paid every year just for that. Because I'm not quite sure if he'll even, like, get an honest chance at the NFL level. He may even go undrafted. So I think at the end of the day, he should be able to come back to Georgia and just national champion should be his job. But it's hard to say that, like, a lot of other quarterbacks, even just on our roster, could have done the same thing. Or if you switch teams, Bryce Young is on our team, they have Stetson Bennett, we don't win by like 40. You have to notice those things. But at the end of the day, he's a champion, and that's all I care about. I ignore all of the rest of the noise.
And then you hit it on the head. He was behind. Let's go back to 2020. He was behind 3 other quarterbacks. 3, a true freshman, a sophomore with no experience, and a transfer who didn't even want to play for us. Oh, and by the way, actually, he really was the 4th because we didn't have JT Daniels at that point. Once we got him, he was 4th on the depth chart. So to think about how far down he was and to keep fighting through that, there won't be another story like this. And I heard Street talking about it. I don't know that we're going to see another story like this in college football for a long time.
I agree.
Yeah. I was
I
just
was
gonna
just
say,
gonna
we
say,
saw the emotions spill over.
I was just gonna say, do you remember a quarterback by the name of Jamie Newman who was supposed to start for us this year? No, was it last year? Either way, I think he would have been here this year as well if he would have maybe have stayed another season, especially with the opt outs. You could stay even if it's your season after your senior season, you could play another year. I'm pretty sure he would have if he didn't, if it weren't for COVID and stuff like that. So it's amazing how different our history has become, due to just little decisions like that.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, it was great to see the emotion spill over for Stetson Bennett after the game, right? You saw him like crying like a baby after everything that he's been through. I don't know if you got a chance to see the GMA interview the morning after. he looked a little bit tipsy, a little bit sleep deprived too, but I'll admit I did like all the posts that involved him on Instagram and all that, even with the Bama loss. So I'll give you guys that one. But you, Rico, you talked about Bryce Young, or you mentioned him in your comments. What are your thoughts on Stetson Bennett's counterpart's performance in the game? Because to be honest with you, I saw one guy step up, one quarterback step up when it mattered most in that game, while the Heisman Trophy winner did not. So what are your guys' thoughts on Bryce Young?
I think he was easily the better quarterback for 3 quarters. But even coming into this game, our game plan was we got to pressure Bryce Young. We got to force him to turnovers because in the SEC championship game, we weren't able to get pressure on him, and he carved us up. But because he did, throw those interceptions, and he started to tail off towards the end. But his receivers were dropping some dimes. Like, if the Washington football team could draft Bryce Young in this draft, we would. The type of throws he was making in that game, his receivers were just dropping them, and then eventually the pressure came on. We started to hit him more often. I mean, he was on his back even on plays that weren't considered sacks. So it just eventually became too much for the young guy.
Right. And I think you've got it right. When you don't have your targets, it showed. And it's not trying to make excuses. Plenty of Alabama fans put Feinbaum on for about an hour. You'll get an example of all the excuses that are out there. But the reality is he's playing behind an offensive line that's got really one pro prospect in Evan Neal. And maybe some other guys will develop, but right now one lineman doesn't make the line. And that's the reality. And bluntly, Georgia was the only team that didn't get to him all season. I mean, heck, even Mississippi State, you look at the pressure he was under. Yes, he's making plays, but the talent on the back end wasn't there. It wasn't a front end problem. And so I don't know how a quarterback like that, continues to excel without targets and without offensive line help. And the trenches are where games are won. And bluntly, he didn't have help all season. That's why he's the Heisman winner. That's why I think he'll make a good pro. But the reality is Alabama needs to reinvest on what their usual strength is, the offensive line.
Fair point. You guys think you'll miss Nakobe Dean at all because I think there are reports that today, or I think this couple days after the championship win, he is entering the 2022 NFL draft. So you think the Bulldogs will miss him, or you think their talented recruiting class will come in, step up, and lead you guys to potentially vie for another national championship?
Oh, we're going to miss him. I mean, even with 5 stars stepping up in his place, Nakobe Dean's just don't come often. Just like we've had 5 stars since Roquan Smith, but you could easily say Nakobe Dean's been our best linebacker since Roquan Smith. The stars don't matter. It's a combination of a lot of things: athleticism, IQ, intelligence, but it's like also that leadership that he brings. I know a lot of people have referred to this often, but I feel like it needs to be talked about. How Channing Tindall early in the game missed his coverage assignment. Not only did Nakobe Dean go and make up for the play himself somehow, but then he got in his face, get in the zone, focus, this is the national championship. We need you. 2 plays later, Channing Tindall goes and makes a touchdown saving play on Bryce Young in the backfield. And so and then of course Nakobe Dean's the first one to congratulate him and to get right back in his face and hype him up. And that's just the type of leadership you don't find everywhere. And that's what led to this team. There are a lot of talented teams out there. A lot of teams have 5 stars and 4 stars all up and down their roster, but it's leadership. We don't have the best quarterback play, but leadership.
And that's the question next season. Is there going to be leadership? We're going to see 5-star recruits. We're going to see the talent that Alabama's brought in. But to Nick Saban's credit, there are new leaders on that team every year. And Georgia's going to be filling in leaders likely everywhere from the quarterback position to the middle linebacker position. Maybe they get a couple safeties to stay, and it looks like they will. that's it. So it's got to be rebuilt. And Kirby Smart said it best: the wind blows the hardest at the top of the mountain. It's now time to prove we can stay. Because I've heard from some Clemson fans who said we can't. I'm excited to prove them wrong.
Out of all people too. And to add to that, Chris Smith is returning. He's our starting safety. That's huge. And then we have a lot of young starters. Keely Ringo was a freshman this year. He'll be a sophomore next year. He's returning. I mean, of course, he's going to be returning. Jalen Carter, I believe, is going to be one of the defensive leaders on that D line. He's going to be a junior this upcoming year. Of course, he's returning as well. Tyke Smith is returning as well. Nolan Smith as well. I mean, he was the #1 recruit out of his recruiting class. It's kind of crazy that even though he's played well, he hasn't lived up to that Khalil Mack hype that he was receiving coming out of high school. Maybe he does that this next season. He'll have plenty of opportunity to step up into that role with a lot of the other guys in front of him on the depth chart moving out of the way.
Okay. What about the Alabama side? Because obviously we're losing Jameson Williams, we're losing John Mitchie, already declared for the draft. Evan Neal, I don't know if he already did, but he's going to. He potentially could go #1 overall. You think Alabama will be all right with all their studs that are probably going to come up from their recruiting class and stuff?
I think on defense, you're going to be a different football team, right? Like, I think we don't talk about it because Georgia's not an offensive football team. There's a lot of mistakes that defense made all year round. And I imagine Pete Golden is not the most popular man in Tuscaloosa right now. So I think on defense, you've got something. On offense, as long as you have Bryce Young, you have a chance. But I mentioned it earlier. If you can't block for him, if you can't run the football, I think Alabama's going to win another 11, 12-game season? Of course. But are you going to win a championship? Can you block? That's going to be a question.
I agree. And to add to that, I feel like Will Anderson, as long as you got him, I mean, and people have been saying it, I agree. If Will Anderson could have gone into the draft this season, he would go before Aiden Hutchinson and Kyle Thibodeau. Like, he's that special. And then on the other side, I didn't really notice him the rest of it, until the national championship. But I believe it was number 15 that almost looked like a baby Will Anderson on the other side. Like, once we focused on Will Anderson, suddenly he looked like the other one on the other side, almost the same size and speed. It was just like, come on, like, man. So I think y'all will be just fine. Just like Frank said, if y'all can block for Bryce Young, and if your receivers can step up, because the athleticism was there. Your receivers beat our safeties and corners at times. They just couldn't catch it. It was just like little nuanced things that you gain with playing time, with it becoming a veteran. I think y'all will be fine.
Okay. We have another Alabama fan in the chat, David DC, friend of the channel. Alabama lost because 2-star wideouts were out. Heard that throughout the week. But freshman Alabama wideouts dropped the ball constantly, hitting their hands. But I won't be bitter. Huge Alabama fan. Congrats, Georgia Bulldogs. Pretty much in the same boat. I get the injury excuse, but at the same time, got to give Georgia their props. They beat us handily. Their defense was. I mean, I know Rico has been talking about the Georgia defense since like week 1, it feels like. And I know Frank probably as well. Like, I mean, you guys deserved it. You guys deserved it. On the warpath, Nakobe Dean, drafted at 11. Where do you think Nakobe Dean will go in this draft?
That's a good question. Let me answer something you didn't ask real quick. Let's also not account for Georgia's injuries. A lot of people don't realize about the second series, their left guard went out of that game. And they moved their left tackle to right guard and put out a right guard at left tackle. A lot of teams can't do that in the middle of the national championship game and have success, and Georgia did. So they, of course, I don't think there's any question it made a difference, but I was surprised at how Georgia had to combat some of their own problems in game, and William Poole himself was not a starter and made a majority of the breakups in the game. So injuries cut both ways, but at the end of the day, we got the job done. Nakobe Dean should be a top 10 pick. I don't think he will be, which means somebody's going to get lucky in the mid-rounds. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I feel like he's going to be at least top 15, but you never know. JOK slid, even though Nakobe Dean is definitely a better prospect, but you never know just off of how small he is. But at the same time, it's the way the NFL is set up now with linebackers. You need to have sideline to sideline speed. He plays bigger than his size. And he's going to be one of the smartest players on the entire team. He may be smarter than your defensive coordinator when you draft him. Like, I mean, it's the blend of intelligence, leadership, and sideline to sideline speed that makes him elite. You know, other traits like his ability to blitz, his ability to coverage is all great, But the thing that sets him apart from other linebackers in previous years is that sideline to sideline speed and how he just knows what's going to happen before it happens.
So what you're saying is that Washington or Las Vegas could potentially draft him this spring.
We'll be picking a little bit later. For once.
How much later? How much later?
I think you're going to find out tomorrow a little bit later than you expect. I don't think much later than that, but a little bit later than you expect.
Okay. Perfect segue though, because we're going to talk about that matchup right now. The Raiders are actually playing.
Switch the hat.
Oh, I didn't see that. I switched the tabs, so I was like, "What's going on?" Yeah. Still repping the Raiders. Okay, so the Raiders, like I said, they're still playing. Unlike our Washington football team, Rico. What are your guys' thoughts on the Raiders versus Bengals matchup? And do you think Derek Carr in Las Vegas could pull out the surprise W? We'll start with Frank, obviously, on this one.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say something that'll probably shock a lot of people, including Raiders fans. I don't think it will come down to Derek Carr. And in a chance, it may not even come down to Joe Burrow, which means if that's the case, the Raiders are in trouble. If you look at that first game we played earlier this year, I mean, it was a 32-13 whooping, and it was actually closer than it sounds for a majority of the game, but it really wasn't. Why? Because Cincinnati ran the ball down the Raiders' throats for 4 quarters. They had 38 attempts for $159. The Raiders rushed the ball about 17 times. I think they were 18 times. They didn't even break 100 yards. That was the difference. That was it. Burrow doesn't have to throw for over 150 yards, which I don't think he did in that game. You're in trouble. You actually want Burrow taking the ball in his hands. Of course, that doesn't always mean good things, for the opposing team, but at least you're not dealing with 2 problems at once. And the Raiders couldn't do that in the last matchup. So I think it comes down to whether that Las Vegas defense, and boy, did I almost say Oakland, that Las Vegas defense plays as well as they have the last few weeks. You take out that fourth quarter of the Chargers games, they're holding everybody to under 20 points. They have not held, and that's 4 games in a row. So there's a real question about what can that defense do, and from there, Derek Carr is going to get enough points out of that game. But we've got to see if the defense can stop the run. And like I keep saying, and maybe it's because I played lineman a lot of my life, everything starts up front. And I'm not confident that the Raiders will come into this game and hold them to no rushing yards, but I don't think it'll be as many as last time. And I think that could be the difference maker. I'll let Rico away before I'm a little biased.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rico.
I mean, I think, first of all, the Raiders deserve a big round of applause for dealing with everything they dealt with this season. I mean, a lot of people forget that the whole John Gruden mess was this season, the Henry Ruggs. I mean, and it was more than just one receiver. And then there's talks about Mike Mayock even being out at GM. Like, they're like, they have, like, I know Washington football teams, we deal with distractions. We come up with excuses for our distractions, and this is why we aren't winning. The Raiders are winning in spite of that, to an extent. It's a different type of distraction, but they've managed to put together a winning formula somehow with, interim head coach and just all kinds. So, I don't particularly favor them against the Bengals because I just feel like they're really high power. Like, I actually like the Bengals as one of my favorite teams just in the AFC, like as far as like how hot they've been. But like I think the Raiders, first of all, even just for getting here, and I respect the fact that y'all didn't go for the tie with the Chargers because y'all both could have just tied and just called it a day. We both made it, but y'all went for it, and I love that as well.
And I think that's a misperception. So a lot of folks think that Chargers don't call that timeout. Why did they call that timeout? They had 10 men on defense. Go back and look at it. They realized they were in trouble anyway. The Raiders were trying that field goal even if they got stuffed on third down. Now, are we going to hit a 58-yard field goal to win the game? I don't know. Daniel Carlson's been clutch, but is he that clutch? I'm glad we didn't have to find out. But the idea that we were going to knee it out, I don't think that's reality. I think they were going to take their shot. There was just, a 58-yard shot versus a 45-yard shot look a little bit different.
Okay. I mean, Frank, you did talk up the Raiders defense. The Bengals offense is it's electric right now. You got obviously Joe Burrow, who we talked about, but you also have the trio of wide receivers: Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, who, it looks like a future Hall of Famer at this point, and Joe Mixon as well. Like, do you think the Raiders defense, with how strong that they've been over the last couple of weeks, do you think they would be able to contend with or contain the electric Bengals offense?
It's all about pass rush. If they get to Burrow, they've got a chance. And that's Max Crosby, Yannick Ngakoue, those type of guys, Quentin Jefferson up front. This is the first real Raiders defensive line. Fun stat, because I grew up in Atlanta, so I'll hurt Falcons fans here too. Raiders and the Falcons were at the bottom of the league in sacks for about a decade. And that turned on its head this year for the Raiders. And so, and bottom of the league means bottom five. So they were both in the bottom five for almost 10 years. You have the Vic Beasley season, and you have this year for the Raiders. That's it. And so if you look at what's changed this team over the last month, it's they're getting to the quarterback, and teams cannot run the ball on them. Eckler had some good plays, but those were passes, screens, those type of things, which can work. But if we affect the quarterback, I think the Raiders are going to have at least a competitive game, where last time it was just give it to Joe Mixon, and then Joe Burrow's only got to throw about a 10-yard out, and he's done for the afternoon. That won't work. If that happens, you might as well start preparing for the Sunday night game or Saturday night game.
Okay. You mentioned the Falcons. So Rico doesn't like the Falcons, to say the least. If I remember correctly. Do you guys want to talk about the Falcons and your thoughts on their future right now?
Tell me you're not a Saints fan. I mean, you said the football team. What have the Falcons done to anybody at this point other than give them some of their best wins?
No, I can admit rooting against the Falcons has been really easy. I would say is the best way to word it. I mean, with all of the folds and stuff, to have a team that you hate the most in the NFL, and if I had to pick one, the Falcons is a good team to have. It just the amount of expectations and then the plummets is just beautiful. But again, I just hate the Falcons just going to high school, being a Washington football team fan, and the bad years we've had. Basically just not including RG3 season, which was my senior year of high school going into college. So I didn't even get to experience that in high school. And all of the trash talk, those were the days they were like making the playoffs. They didn't win anything, but they were consistently like at least decent while we were just trying to win 6 games. So, just from living in Atlanta, dealing with a lot of Falcons fans, they've turned into my most hated team. The Cowboys are a really close second. But, man, I love rooting against the Falcons. And I don't particularly like the Saints. Alvin Kamara is from Atlanta, so I root for his success. But, like, I don't particularly like – a lot of Falcons haters automatically love the Saints. I don't really have a love for the Saints like that. It's just straight laser focus on Falcons. Please lose. But, I mean, they have a bright future. Kyle Pitts looks as good as advertised. I don't know why they didn't use him sooner. It was like the first 4 weeks of the season. They just were reluctant to use him at all. Like I vividly remember like week 1, it was like a 1st and goal series to where they ended up kicking a field goal, and Kyle Pitts was never on the field 1st, 2nd, or 3rd down. I was like, why would you spend a high draft pick on a guy you're not going to use him? Eventually they started using them, and I think if they get a guy to groom behind Matt Ryan, because I think he could play, at a pretty decent level for at least the next 1 or 2 years. I think they'll be straight in the future. But I mean, like Frank said, and so that D line can get me pressure. How much is it going to matter? They're going to be too busy trying to outscore guys. I like AJ Terrell. He went to Westlake, same high school as me, Cam Newton, Adam Pac-Man Jones, and hopefully Washington football team future Malik Willis. So I love AJ Terrell, and I'm always rooting for him. But just the Falcons overall, I can't. I just can't do it.
No, I get you. And on Kamara's Milton High School, our rivals. So Roswell, I'll give you the Malik Willis love, but I can't deal with Kamara. You alluded to my other favorite stat, which is in the last 5 years, the teams to kick the most field goals in the red zone. How about the Raiders and the Falcons? Next closest team is 10 field goals away. So, jeez, it's just rough living.
Yeah. And I know Rico enjoyed that 28-3 comeback too in the Super Bowl.
It was beautiful. It's beautiful. But it's bittersweet because I hate the Patriots too. Like, just like with Alabama, even if I weren't a Georgia fan, just Alabama always winning. I've always felt like that. I felt that way with the Patriots, especially Alabama. I haven't noticed them cheat. We've vividly seen the Patriots treat a couple of times. And so, like, it's like a strong distaste for the Patriots. So it was bittersweet. I would have been happy to see my city happy and to break a championship curse. But at the same time, to see the Falcons lose the way they did, no matter what's going on, I just say that the number's 28-3 and it's over with. Like there's no argument.
Okay. Last 2 questions with Frank on this one. I think I know the answer to it by now, but Derek Carr is no longer going to be on the market, right? After this season.
And again, hand up to the sky. I've had some moments, and I'm sure if you search my Twitter, you'll find them. But Derek Carr is the answer in Las Vegas, at least in the interim. I mean, really, how many quarterbacks can go through what this team's been through? You didn't even mention Damon Arnett. Many teams, if their first round pick gets cut in a season, that's the top story. That's like 4th or 5th on our list. And here we are in the playoffs. How is that possible? Of course, I mentioned defense and what Gus Bradley's done is a big deal. And there's some questions about the coaching. But at quarterback, there doesn't need to be a question. The guy's 30 years old. Extend him. You can play probably 5 more good seasons, and we'll go from there. And a lot of Raiders fans, and myself included in some of those low moments, forget who used to play quarterback for the Raiders. We could start at Aaron Brooks and work our way back to Kerry Collins and Marquise Tuiasosopo. That is how bad it was for decades. Jamarcus Russell is probably the top of that list, but you don't even want to know who's in between. So that is why I feel like it's got to be Derek Carr. I'm sorry. I know you all need help at quarterback. It feels like the football team or the soon-to-be something else team is going to have they're a quarterback away. I feel like you all felt that way. Denver's felt that way for a while. It's just not going to be our quarterback. At least I hope not.
Okay. Rico, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I can't see them letting Derek Carr go. I wouldn't if I were them. It's like he said, it's really hard to come by on great quarterbacks. It's just not. It's. I don't think it's as hopeless as trying to draft a quarterback and groom him and turn into a franchise quarterback as most people think. But when you have a Derek Carr, you don't let him go. Like you just don't. I mean, again, in spite of all of the chaos going on with the organization this season and all of the moving pieces, the fact that Derek Carr has been one of the very few constants. I mean, you don't pay people for what they've done. Like you pay them for what they will do, but you got to give Derek Carr a little extra on the back end for dealing with what he's dealt with this season.
Yeah. No, I agree. Sucks for us because I mean that's got to cross off one more name off the quarterback market this offseason. But
go ahead and cross off Deshaun Watson too.
Yeah, I think there's a chance. There's a chance that might happen with Flores out of Miami, but I don't know. But the last question I want to ask you, Frank, while you're on. So you do have a DMV connection now since you live in the DMV, you work in the DMV. So I'll ask both of you guys this: what do you think the new name of this football team will be, and what do you want the new name of this football team to be?
So I'll give you an outsider's perspective because, yes, I live here, but I go to some games, and usually I appreciate that there probably needs to be a name. I like the Red Tails name. I like the history behind it. It transitions well with already exists. It's a great opportunity for a franchise just like Vegas, so I feel for you, that's had quite a bit of bad marks over the years. This is a chance to make a good mark, and it's got the right kind of message that would really feel like a fan base would buy in on. That's from the outside, right? I can't tell you what you want to be wearing next season. I get to wear a playoff and a national championship shirt. I'm happy. I'm good for probably I say for the next 5 years. Come see me early next fall. I'll be screaming on Twitter. But generally, I think you guys are you have some good options. The Red Tails, I've been kind of a supporter of that from early on. I think it's the right name for the right area, the right time for a team that hopefully is moving in the right direction.
Rico?
Yeah, I definitely feel like they're going to try to tie some type of history to it. I mean, they've said it several times. Who knows if it's just a smoke screen?
Okay.
But I feel like, of course, my favorite was anything dealing with wolves, and that was before the ball even got rolling because it's my favorite animal growing up. Even when I used to play NCAA football, the EA games, I used to make my team the something wolves every time. Like it's just I've always been that type. So when that idea was, I forgot somebody put the name out there, and I was like, yes, please, please. And then the ball got rolling. So I was loving how it just started to gain steam because this was like, yes, please, we're. It looked like, I mean, of course, you can't say it's the fan favorite, but if you had to pick a name for the majority of the people to rock behind, it was definitely Wolves as far as every Twitter poll, every poll they put anywhere, honestly. But I think it will just all signs are pointing to Commanders again. Maybe a lot of different smoke screens because they showed the logo, they showed the stitching. It's just a lot of reasons why it looks like it will actually be that. But who knows? This could be just a really smart way to just blow us off their trail. And I mean, they're just throwing all kinds of names out there. I think they're leaking some things on purpose to get us excited to think it's one thing is going to end up being the next. But for me, I really wish it were Red Wolves or anything like that. Just anything dealing with wolves because that's been me since I was in elementary school, making my own teams, Madden, NCAA, all of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you guys bringing back the touchdown song? I gotta ask.
I don't think so. I don't think
Goofy
so.
song, man.
I
That
don't
might be
know.
for the best. The Dolphins got one still. You don't need it. Trust me.
I don't know. I do agree with Rico. Like Red Wolves was probably my favorite going into this entire process, but after they announced that they weren't going to go with Red Wolves because of trademark issues, which I don't really buy that explanation. When you're $1 billion franchise, I think you can get over that. But with that name being out of the picture, I think Red Tails. I agree with Frank. I mean, if you're gonna go with a name out of a bunch of names that sound terrible, why not go with a name that has the best meaning? And that's the Red Tails, right? Like,
good point.
So, but I will say this: Louis T did talk up the Warthogs name last night on his stream. I don't like the sound of it, but I do get the Hogs reference. So like the Washington O-lines of like the 80s and 90s glory days and stuff, and the announcements happening on Groundhog Day. So I don't know. I heard there's a military connection as well. I don't know if you guys, the Warthogs, like, yeah. So, but no, I think Red Tails definitely, out of all the names right now, definitely should be at the top of my list. But Frank, it's been great having you on. Thank you so much, man, for chiming in on the Raiders, the Georgia Bulldogs. But any last words you want to say on the stream?
No, I'll just end with thank you. The national champion Georgia Bulldogs is all I'll add to that. But thank you all for having me. This was fun. I look forward to paying attention and tuning in. And you guys have kind of converted me as pseudo Washington, whatever it's going to be, fans. So I'll be paying attention to and rooting for you to finally get that quarterback.
Yeah, same here. I have a face to attach to the Raiders, and I've never had any reason to hate them. So, I'll be rooting for y'all against the Bengals.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
All right, peace out, Frank. Okay, so just looking through the comments right now, man, look at this. It'd be your own people, Rico. Look at this. Abdullah from Bound Boys Sports Talk, who's another content creator on this channel. Roll with the L's. Ty.
I didn't even get that at first.
Oh my man, your own people. Dave in DC, Atlanta is like the Wash football team using their stars as decoys. Interesting. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh boy. I mean, Scott Turner started to finally utilize Logan Thomas at certain points and Terry McLaurin at certain points, but boy, like midway through the season, back and the year before that, and even going back to Jay Gruden days, literally our best offensive weapons were literally distractions. Let's throw them out there, let them get double teamed, and we're just gonna hit the guys that are inconsistent catchers. We'll try to hit the guys that are inconsistent separators. So yeah, that's definitely, I feel like we fixed it a little bit, and I'm fairly optimistic about what Scott Turner could do with the actual quarterback that can hit Terry McLaurin, De'Ami Brown, DeAndre Carter, and if Curtis Samuel's healthy, in stride. But yeah, I mean, like at least the past year and a half, starting from the middle of the season back, we literally just straight decoys, and that was so frustrating, man.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Rich here brings up an interesting scenario. Do you think this is possible with Kyle Hamilton being the pick potentially in the first round, and then we using 2 seconds? I'm guessing that's 1 second this year and 1 second next year to get back into the first round, kind of like a Montez Sweat situation, and drafting Malik Willis. Do you think that's a possibility for us?
No, that's literally like best case scenario, like of all time. And I feel like honestly, Kyle Hamilton is too special of a talent to make it to our 11th pick. You'd probably have to slightly trade up a little bit to get him, just like I felt like with Michael Parsons. He went like 3 or 4 picks before we picked, and I wanted us to trade up to get him or a quarterback. We did neither. Now look at where we're at. So I mean, if you can pull that off, I don't even care about the rest of the rounds. I honestly, like, whoever we get, I'm ecstatic. Kyle Hamilton is like, I mean, you could put him up there. Some people even argue he's better than Derwin James coming out, Jamal Adams coming out, Minka Fitzpatrick coming out, as far as just versatility and range. Like he's just that type of guy. So you get him to hold it down with him and Cameron Curl in the secondary, and then you have your potential Malik Willis, who I feel like may have to sit a year potentially to groom behind.
You think fans are going to be patient, Rico? You think fans are going to
Hey,
be
they better be. Hey, they better figure it out. They better. I don't want to hear no trash talk about a Westlake alumni. I don't care what he did. I don't care if he throw 3 interceptions. I'm in the middle of the crowd swinging. I don't hear. Hey, we get Malik Willis. He can sit as long as he wants because I feel like he could truly be the answer as far as like just elite traits. But then again, like I've also said, if the Ravens could win year 1 with Lamar Jackson, why can't we? If the Philadelphia Eagles are doing what they're doing with Jalen Hurts, I feel like why can't we with Malik Willis? But you have to like dedicate all resources to making sure you bring out the best in them. You have to hide his weaknesses and do literally what Philly's doing with Jalen Hurts. Because I feel like Malik Willis is literally just you could probably say just as inaccurate Jalen Hurts, but stronger arm, more mobility, especially coming out of college wise. So he's literally just better Jalen Hurts, in my opinion, even just year 1. So I think you should be able to design an offense to win early with them. It's whether or not they want to risk it and throw him out there early. I think he should sit for a little while, maybe at least some games. But I mean, I just don't understand the impatience. I kind of do, but like Pat Mahomes sat for a year. Like a lot of great sat for. Aaron Rodgers sat for a couple of years. If it really, really helps these guys, I say let them. But I think you can win early with Malik Willis, especially if our team were fully healthy. We wouldn't be in the situation we're in. We won a 4-game win streak. It was the perfect blend of our defense finally figured out what to do. Landon Collins at linebacker, William Jackson in man coverage. And right before injuries, injured reserve players, Wes Schweitzer, Chase Roulier, Logan Thomas, all of them ended up on IR or at least missing a few weeks. And then COVID hit. I feel like we were a playoff team this year with Taylor Heineke holding us back to an extent. So if you get a guy that could hit Terry McLaurin in stride and not underthrow him when he's 60 yards down the field, 10 yards of separation to the next defender, I think that alone wins us more games this season. So I think we will be straight. And we have a top 5 offensive line statistically. So I think it's a great situation to put Malik Willis in.
See if we let go of Brandon Sheriff, who you probably know. I am on the Brandon Sheriff should be back here in DC bandwagon, although I don't think he's going to. If we let go of him, I think our offensive line, I get it. Everybody talks about Wes Schweitzer and Eric Flowers. I think we're going to feel the loss of Brandon Sheriff next year for a full season if he's not here in DC. Do you agree with that statement?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I love Wes Schweitzer, but ideally he's a backup that can come in if Eric Flowers or whoever's your starting guard gets hurt. So if Brandon Sheriff walks, which again, I agree. I think it's more than likely going to happen because we offered him highest paid guard money last year. Who knows what he's asking for this year? It's only going to get worse. We have a lot of cap space if they really want to do it, but I'm just not sure if it's the best thing to do. We'll just have to see what the numbers look like. I still feel like we should at least take get a guard in free agency to replace him and let Wes Schweitzer continue being the backup because Wes Schweitzer can fill in nicely any interior injury, right guard, center, left guard, and that's where you prefer to have him on your depth chart. So I don't want him. Ideally, he's not starting. He can fill in, but you don't want to go week 1 Wes Schweitzer starting at right guard.
Yeah, I agree. Anthony Thomas here. He's just the guard, Jay Gruden voice. We all know how he felt when we used the 5th overall pick in the NFL draft on the right guard.
Boy, that was the Leonard Williams draft. I was so upset. I was preaching Leonard Williams the whole offseason. I can remember vividly watching the draft on my TV, how upset we were. How upset I was. I was like, man.
Yeah. Speaking of previous drafts, so we talked about Malik Willis. Okay, let me ask you first about the quarterback class from last year because I feel like, I mean, you were on the Trey Lance trade. I was on the train. I was on the Zach Wilson train. These young guns, mixed bag, right? In terms of performance this year, Mac Jones probably had the best of performances, but even he was super inconsistent. What are your thoughts on the 2021 class before we get into the 2022 class?
I think, honestly, the main problem with a lot of the great quarterbacks, because Trevor Lawrence showed you against the Colts that he has it in him. the situations around them have been really bad. I mean, Zach Wilson has weapons, but I think Mekhi Becton was out for a season for a lot of the year, so that was supposed to be a franchise left tackle. So he didn't have much protection. He showed you flashes. He also had some bad moments, but you know, I'm not one of those people that's giving up on any of these guys because I feel like if they were in better situations, they'd be better. Like Mac Jones isn't the best quarterback out of this class. He's just on the best team. You even saw against the Bills, they didn't trust him to throw the ball even 5 times. Like he doesn't even have to do much for them to win. So I feel like, honestly, if we're talking about the situation around them and how well they performed, who had the best combination of those is easily Davis Mills from the Houston Texans. He had the best rookie quarterback season. If you're talking about like what was around him, Anthony. I mean, those last few games, he definitely earned a shot to start this next year. I think they should definitely build around him. And I can admit where I'm wrong because I wasn't a big Davis Mills fan coming out, but he came out and looked really good. So I got to admit I was wrong there. But I feel like, I mean, Trey Lance hasn't had many opportunities. I think they're just letting him sit. They brought him in every now and then for run-heavy packages and to make like an occasional deep ball throw that Jimmy Garoppolo didn't have the arm to do. And then Justin Fields, I mean, he has a team around him, but he had like the worst coaching situation around him. They didn't design that offense to do any favors for that.
Rico, I know. Out here in Chicago, every day, fire Matt Nagy, fire Ryan Pace. Finally got their way.
Exactly. So it's just like I feel like the situations around them were terrible, which takes me to my next point. Since a lot of these quarterbacks in this upcoming draft class aren't highly touted, they may slide further into the draft, which means they'll end up on better teams. A lot of these guys will not end up on the equivalent of the Jaguars and the Jets, where it's just the quarterback and no hope around them, no help around them. I feel like a lot of these guys may end up in more Mac Jones-like situations. And I think a lot of these rookie quarterbacks coming out of this next draft will have much more consistent success per, prospect.
Okay. So speaking of this class, so you talked about Malik Willis, Liberty University. What about guys like Sam Howell, Corral, and someone else who I read a ESPN piece on him, and he's sort of dealing with injuries right now, but if all things go, he might rise up the draft boards. Carson Strong, I believe, from Nevada, who had a bunch of stats last year, has a great arm. I mean, looks kind of pro ready, but again, he played at Nevada, so it's really hard to tell. What are your thoughts on all these guys?
So I guess the best way to go through it is probably like my own quarterback rankings. Of course, Malik Willis is my favorite just based off of traits. And also him and Sam Howell easily 2 worst situations around them out of any of these top quarterback prospects. We're talking about like offensive line, receiver, just opening the floodgates for defensive linemen and receivers dropping easy passes. Sam Howell and Malik Willis easily had the most difficult situations in college. So I give both of them points for that. But Malik Willis, and we're talking about traits, arm strength, mobility, he's probably the best blend of that outcome for a quarterback coming out in years. And he's not as inaccurate as a lot of people think. Like he has at times he shows elite touch, like he'll drop it right in the breadbasket at the perfect angle on the sideline. My problem with him is that it's decision making. His biggest red flag is he was trying to do too much. The team around him was terrible, and he would throw it into triple coverage because he's like, hey, if I don't do it, who will? And I think, honestly, even though that is an excuse, that is hard to shake at the NFL level. Like, even if he were to somehow, if you just plopped him on the Chiefs and he had all these great weapons around him, I could still see him easily throwing it into triple coverage because you build bad habits from doing it for so long.
Maybe
so I feel like
you do it in DC. I'm not saying he's the same type of quarterback. I'm just saying,
but it's just some things are hard to shake. So if he can shake his poor decision making, I think he can be an elite quarterback. He has top 10, top 5 quarterback traits, but who knows what he'll be as a package. So I'm just straight traits. That's how I am with just any type of scouting. Like even Michael Thomas, Trey Lance, even like Michael Thomas coming out of Ohio State, he was not heralded much because he didn't put up a lot of great stats, but you can look on film and see like per play what type of impact he had on the game once he got a good quarterback. Ohio State's run of quarterbacks, we know.
Very well.
Michael Thomas ended up being a really good receiver. So I scout traits most importantly. So second, Kenny Pickett, of course, the most day one ready. Has a stronger arm. Has a stronger arm than a lot of people give him credit for. I think he can ball out. I don't think any of these guys should go top 5, top 10, honestly. But of course, somebody's going to, because it's a quarterback's league. Third, Carson Strong, like you spoke of. He's just that prototypical guy. Like, I could see him filling in for Ben Roethlisberger perfectly. Of course,
And
he's
not,
the least.
And not who backs up Roethlisberger right now? Not him.
He's over with. He's over with. It's the work ethic too.
Bro.
Even forget all of the on the field problems. I mean, on the phone, texting on the sideline. I forgot what that was. It was a few weeks ago. Like, right. He just doesn't get it. He'll never get it. Chance after chance. Mike Tomlin, only black quarterback in the league, giving you another chance. Like, I really want you to succeed, and he's still not taking it seriously. When will he? Where will he? So, I think Carson Strong I can see a scenario where he ends up being the best quarterback from the class, again, depending on what situation he goes to, just because of his arm talent. I think him and Malik Willis, you could probably throw in Howell and Corral somewhere in there, have the strongest arms out of this draft class. I think it's honestly between Willis and Carson Strong as far as like elite arm strength. And people talk about him being the least mobile guy, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's not mobile. For him, it's just his leg injuries, like his slew of injuries in the past. I'm worried about whether or not that will actually, like, will that take care of itself at the NFL level, or will he continue to be hurt? He was healthy this season, but who knows if that comes back behind him. And then fourth, I have my boy Matt Corral. I love Matt Corral, but I'm a little worried about how small he is and if he's going to be injury prone. And then Bailey Zapp, I'm really intrigued by him because he's had the best quarterback season statistically since Joe Burrow. I think he technically had a statistically better season than him. But he is playing, against lesser competition. So we'll see how that translates to the NFL level. And then after that, Howell and Ritter, I'm okay with. Whereas other drafts, there's a few quarterbacks I would hate to get. Howell and Ritter, I don't hate them. I just prefer other guys. So if we end up taking either of those guys, I could see a scenario where we can make it work. And I think Howell would pick up right where he left off with De'Ami Brown if we were to get him.
Well, if De'Ami Brown steps up, that's a big if. That's a big if. But I will say this: I agree with you with Matt Corral in terms of getting hurt. I don't know if you got a chance to watch that bowl game, the Ole Miss bowl game, before he obviously got that major injury. Bro, this man's runs like Cam Newton, but he's like Taylor Heineke size. You're asking for an injury on the NFL level, like with the way he was playing during that game. So I don't know. But I agree with you. I think Willis, although I'm a little worried about the Liberty thing, because we had our own Liberty player that everybody was talking down on, like, he didn't play against superior competition. Like, at least among the fan base, we all kind of excuse that, and we're like, look at the traits. And I don't know.
It didn't work out. Practice squad, not practice squad, practice squad, not practice.
Yeah. But I agree with you. He definitely has the traits. I guess I'm a little higher on Howell than you, but I'll give you, like, he didn't really look too spectacular this season, and we shall see where he ends up. But I do want to get to some other, like, points in the comment section. First off, Hawk TV did join earlier. What up, fellas? I love when the bros collab. Appreciate that.
I see the high cute. I see the profile picture, the anime. I respect that.
For sure. It gives me hope for when I take YouTube serious. We appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
A big compliment. But okay, so I saw a question in the comment section. What should we do to address the wideout position? Obviously, we have Terry McLaurin. Sign him up. Extension ASAP. Curtis Samuel, non-existent for much of the season.
You saw he said this is the healthiest he's ever felt. Now, like, thanks.
If we were
really
in the playoffs,
appreciate
probably
that.
would have mattered. Yeah. Okay, Curtis Samuel. Technically, he's under contract, and he's getting a lot of money next year as well. De'Ami Brown technically was our third round pick this year. Cam Sims as well as on the roster. Do you think we should pick up somebody in the draft? Maybe pick up somebody in free agency? What are your thoughts on how we should address the wide receiver position this offseason?
Me personally, I'm moving forward as if Curtis Samuel doesn't exist, because who knows if he's ever going to get it together. He was apparently fully healthy before May, and then we saw what happened throughout this season. So me personally, I would, but I'm pretty sure the organization won't. Like you alluded to, his contract is backloaded, so he's about to start getting paid a lot of money, and they're gonna require him to play because even if it's not just for the money per se, when it comes to politics and NFL franchises feeling like they're the smartest guys doing it, they have to legitimize giving them that much money. And I'm pretty sure them drafting a receiver in the first round, second round, third round would be like, we just wasted our money on Curtis Samuel. And even if that is the right move, I doubt they will, because it's egos, it's politics, and all of that type of stuff. So I would like to go get like an Allen Robinson. I would love to, but I just highly doubt we will.
So he's already dealt with a terrible quarterback situation here in Chicago. You think he's going to go to another terrible quarterback situation if we don't get the position solved? I don't know.
True.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, but he tweeted at Charles Leno. He's like, good job getting your money. Finally, a franchise that pays their guys. I don't think it holds much weight, but, of course, I feel happy about that.
I think, Rico, the only way he comes here to DC is if we get a solid veteran quarterback. I even think if we draft one, he's going to be impatient because he's been with young quarterbacks like pretty much his entire, the last couple of years, really. Even in Jacksonville, he was with young quarterbacks and stuff. So young, not so great quarterbacks, to say the least. So, but go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I appreciate that because that's a great point. I definitely agree that it's not realistic, but that's just my dream scenario. Because of course, Devontae Adams, first of all, the Packers aren't letting him go, and he's going to be out here making quarterback money, so that's done. And I mean, maybe in the draft, if you can get my boy George Pickens later, I feel like he's arguably the most talented receiver in this draft. He just didn't get a chance to show it this last year. To me, he's basically just a slightly faster Keenan Allen. But he leg injury in the bowl game last year against Cincinnati ruined him all the way up until really like the last couple of weeks, and even then we didn't get to use him much. So I feel like a team is going to be really lucky to get him outside of the second round, and I would love to be one of those teams. If George Pickens makes it to the third or fourth round, you sprint to the podium to get him.
Okay, DJ Chark, free agent. Do you think we could pick him up for cheap? Do you think it's a good idea?
I honestly haven't watched enough of him to give like an honest opinion. I had him on my fantasy team the year he went crazy, and I don't know what's happened since like last year. I don't know exactly.
Injuries, bro. Injuries.
That's what
injuries. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so they're not going to get another Paul Robinson, another Curtis Samuel. So I doubt if it's an injury prone guy, I don't really see them doing it because George Pickens was just one big flat out injury. I wouldn't consider him injury prone.
Okay. David DC brings up the Baker Mayfield comment. What do you think we should do? I mean, we sort of like touched on it when Frank was on, but we're going to talk about it in the few minutes that we have left here. What do you think we should do at the quarterback position? Because obviously none of what we talked about for the first 52 minutes matters unless we get the quarterback situation solved. So, and you've been in that boat for more than, a couple years now, right? Even last season, you were like, I remember on your channel, you were like, we're going to the season with Ryan Fitzpatrick, right? Like we talked about filling in all the other needs, but none of that matters unless we get the quarterback situation solved. So from the great Rico from Street Scores, what are your thoughts on the quarterback position, and who do you think is out there that we could potentially get?
You know me, man. Like I said, whatever scenario leads to us getting Malik Willis, I'm happy. Even if we sign like a Mitchell Trubisky or get a Baker Mayfield as like a bridge guy. But like as far as like finding a franchise quarterback in free agency, I don't particularly like any of these guys to be the answer. Like again, if you take a Mitchell Trubisky, if you take a Marcus Mariota, you better get somebody at least in the second round to groom behind them, and maybe we deal with them for like a year. But I don't see anybody on the market right now as a potential franchise quarterback. Because again, Derek Carr's taken. Like I can't see the Raiders letting him go. And maybe Baker Mayfield, his rookie season was great. Second season was terrible. Third season was great. This fourth season was terrible. Maybe that fifth season, if he continues the pattern, he has a great year. That's the only way I can legitimize that. But I don't even like Baker Mayfield, especially for like a second round pick that I feel like we should use at either free safety or linebacker if we don't address it in free agency. To me, the answer is draft, no matter what we do in free agency, unless we get a Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, which I highly doubt.
So Okay, I was about to ask. So I think, I mean, I guess we still kind of have to talk about them, right? Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson. I think out of all those guys, Deshaun Watson's probably, and like there's a small chance that we're gonna get any of them. But out of those three, I think Deshaun Watson maybe might be the likeliest, just because he definitely is on his way out and stuff, and he plays for an AFC team or an NFC team. Maybe they're trying to trade like out of conference, but my dream has always been Aaron Rodgers. Bro, I remember last offseason, I kid you not, if you looked at my comment section during some of the live streams, people were like, we don't need Aaron Rodgers. We have Taylor Heineke. We have young guy. We don't, bro, because everybody kept bringing up his age, 38 years old. I said this last offseason, and I'll say it again. I could care less about his age. 38 years old, about to be, in my opinion, MVP once again. Two-time MVP, 37, 38-year-old seasons. Like, I think he has at least 5, maybe even 6 years left. I mean, look at Tom Brady, right? Like, I think Aaron Rodgers has adopted his game so that he's not, the super mobile guy that he was early in his career. He's more of the pocket passer now. So, but possibility very slim. Do you think maybe Deshaun Watson, if he changes his mind around the no trade, clause that he has, maybe he could end up in DC?
I mean, I'm hoping for it. He's born and raised 30 minutes outside of Atlanta, 30 minutes to an hour outside of Atlanta. So I've wanted him since he was coming out of high school. Sadly, he went to Clemson, and then coming out of Clemson, it would have been nice to get him, but he went to the Texans. So, I mean, if everything clears up, Deshaun Watson easily would be my favorite option. But like you said, Aaron Rodgers, forget the age. Like, that man is balling. He is the MVP of the league this year. I don't care. At 40 years old, I believe he's still going to be balling out. I think we could at least get a solid 2-3 years. And if you were to get a guy as old as Aaron Rodgers, maybe you don't expect him to be great for the next 5 years, but that's when you take your time grooming a quarterback. Maybe you get one third round or later to learn behind him while you're a Super Bowl contender. You get Aaron Rodgers, you're a Super Bowl contender. Even with a worse roster than we currently have, we're a Super Bowl contender because it's Aaron Rodgers. Now, great top 5 offensive line, according to a lot of advanced metrics. The defense, once everybody's healthy, started to play, fairly well. I mean, we beat the Raiders, who's in the playoffs right now. I believe a lot of our shortcomings were due to injuries. I don't like to make excuses, but like, injuries literally killed us this year. COVID, all of that. So I feel like our roster is better than a lot of people give it credit for. You plop Aaron Rodgers on this roster with Super Bowl contenders. I think we're favorites in the NFC, honestly.
That's a man or 2 men, I guess, can dream, right? With Aaron Rodgers here. But last question, Rico. I know you have to go, and this question that Anthony asked here sort of ties into it, obviously. But what is your thoughts on the general direction of this Washington football team? Do you think Ron Rivera, Ron's plan, as Louis T likes to say, do you think he really, past February 2nd, 2022, when we have a new name and all that, and all the glitz and glamour that comes with that, like, do you think this team will actually win games on the field and be a playoff contender, like with a quarterback this offseason? Like, do you think that's happening very soon, or do you think it might take another coach? Sorry, I'm bringing up the wrong comment. Might take another coach to come in here and do that.
Now, it would be nice to trade out Jack Del Rio for Vic Fangio. He just got fired. But I doubt that's gonna happen. But also with that, like, you kind of have to change your defense. Vic Fangio doesn't run the exact defense. We won't have to start to draft different players, so that would complicate things. But I think overall it'd be best for us. Not gonna happen though. I feel like, honestly, nothing matters unless we figure out quarterback. And they've been saying the same words since last year, and we didn't end up taking a quarterback, like the same exact words, but it was a slightly different tone. Like, Ron Rivera sounded like he knew. Like, the way he spoke about the situation, like, he sounds like he knew we need to figure out a quarterback situation. It's year 3. Most guys at least take their quarterback year 1, and by year 3, they're ready to go. You're just about to potentially take a quarterback year 3. I think they have to at this point.
I mean, Rivera did that in Carolina. He took his quarterback, year 1, year 2, and right, Cam Newton, number 1 overall, right? You can't go wrong with that. But like, he did that, and we saw what happened with Carolina. So I definitely agree with you there. But Rico, thank you so much, bro, for coming on the channel. As always, bring on great insight about the draft, the offseason, even your Georgia Bulldogs. But which I know you always rep. But Yeah. Any last words before you head on out? Before we head on out?
Just please get a quarterback, Ron Rivera. If you're watching this, please, I beg you. I gave you 6 of them. No more stopgap. I can't.
Exactly
Please, man, play. I agree. I agree. I think it's time to go. We have a good roster outside of quarterback, better than a lot of people think. Injuries just killed us. A lot of people think we're just terrible everywhere. Like our offensive line isn't good, and we don't have a lot of weapons. But if J.D. McKissic, Logan Thomas, Terry McLaurin healthy, that's a pretty nice ensemble. And again, top 5 offensive line, defensive pieces everywhere. I think you get the right quarterback. I think we can honestly become Super Bowl contenders immediately, at the very least playoff contenders. So Ron Rivera, please, and don't just get any quarterback, get the right quarterback. Get the guy that you're going to focus on. You're going to build the offense around. I love Malik Willis, but if you're not going to take the time to run a Kyler Murray-like offense for like the Cardinals are running, Jalen Hurts for the Eagles, Lamar Jackson for the Ravens, don't waste your time. Get a more traditional guy like Carson Strong. Either way, whoever you get, put your all into him. Don't give up on him early, please.
I promise you, if we settle for Mitch Trubisky, I don't call him Trubisky. I will. I don't know, man. I feel like I'm gonna be very close to rage quitting, bro, on this organization. If we settle for Mitch Trubisky, bro, and I saw it on Twitter. People are like a legit option for us, Mitch Trubisky in this offseason, bro.
And that's
I wanted to go. All right, but yeah, thank you again, Rico, for joining. Sorry for keeping you over, but thank you guys so much in the chat. Appreciate it. Very lively discussion. We had Frank on in the beginning. They were talking up their Georgia Bulldogs, and we got into some Washington football team talk. Appreciate it. And as always, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the DMV Sports Zone channel, where we like to post fire content on here as much as possible. Also, go follow our Instagram and Twitter page, DMV Sports Zone. And appreciate it, Dave and DC. And with that being